Hey, what's up everybody? It's Reed with Blue Hen Combatives here, and I wanted to give a brief match report for my first two-gun event. So it was this past weekend, and I had an awesome time, shot with my best friend, and let me tell you what, it was the most fun I maybe never want to have again. The match design was awesome, everything went perfectly fine, placed well, placed second out of 47 actually, which was extremely surprising. But boy, oh my God, it was hot. It was crazy hot the entire time, and of the 47 competitors that showed up, 24 dropped out for heat. So anyway, I just wanted to give a brief match breakdown and maybe at the end of the video share some tips and tricks that I picked up and some experiences I learned that might be able to help other people. But really the main through line for everything, at least from my perspective, is bring twice the amount of water and electrolytes that you think you're going to need, especially during the summer. Granted, this was in mid-July, right? And I knew it was going to be hot, but spending 9+ hours out in the heat when it's above 100 degrees on the heat index, yeah, it was seriously challenging. And it just goes to show you can be fit, you can have all of your gear and your weapons, and you can train consistently, but if you're not able to, let's just say, survive with inclement weather, you're going to have a bad day. So anyway, of the 8 stages that took place for the shooting match, the first one was kind of a warm-up, working on the rifle to pistol transition drill, so I didn't get any footage for that, but it was a bill drill with the rifle to the T-box of a USPSA head target, I think at 10 yards, followed up by a bill drill center mass to the body with the pistol. So anyway, I don't have that footage in this video. I didn't take it, but for the rest of the 7 stages, the way that this is going to work on my end is that I have a third-person point of view of the camera, followed by my first-person point of view with the aim cam glasses that I was wearing. So oftentimes you can actually see the red dot with both my pistol and rifle as I transition from target to target. So anyway, I'll have a little bit of extra narration during the video, but I hope you enjoy the following footage, and I hope you get something out of it. All right, thank you.
Shooter in the case, ready, stand by!
All right, moving on to stage 2. So you can see that I'm shooting from a trunk of a vehicle. Interesting experience. That was the first time for me. I'm about to transition over to 2 targets on the left here, very close in, so I'm paying attention to height over bore. You'll be able to see that from the follow-on first-person view. You have to unload the rifle before exiting the vehicle, moving over and transitioning to the pistol here. I think there were 3 or 4 targets from around the barrels. All right, transitioning. 1 more target, and then 6 steel targets to finish up the stage with. Alright, moving on to the first-person point of view for this stage. I'd like to give a shout out to the RSO. He really helps me out here. So he suggests that I move the rifle back so that the stock is actually on the headrest, which gave me just that extra, quarter second, half second of speed. Making the weapon ready, checking everything. It's those little tips, though, that actually really add up over the course of a stage or match.
Oh, okay.
And even if it's just moving your foot to the left slightly or, situating your firearm, let's say a handgun on a table the right way, it really does add up, and it really, really helps. Checking the targets to the left there, there's a no-shoot in the middle of the 2. And for the start position, I had to put my forehead on the front seat ahead of me. All right, here we go. And as you can see, 2 shots center mass for each target that's visible. Transitioning over, getting that 16-inch barrel around the corner. Not terribly difficult, but having an 11.5 or a 12.5 would definitely be a little bit easier. Although I don't think I would want to deal with that muzzle blast unless it was suppressed. All right. Yep. I throw an extra shot there just to make sure that I had at least 2 in the A zone. And then here we go, running the steel. Definitely wanted to slow down a little bit because of those no-shoots. If I whiffed a shot, well, you're going to have a penalty there.
Show me an empty chamber on your rifle.
Yes, sir.
Pull forward. Muzzle up or down. Stage clear. 3993.
3993.
Clean.
Woo!
It looks good, man. I didn't see any hiccups.
Thanks. Woo!
Shooter ready?
Ready.
All right, on to stage 3. As you can see, we are in the seated position. Now, what you can't really see, from this point of view at least, is how many targets are around me. So there were 3 that were in a very close proximity, almost, reaching distance with my hands, or phone booth. Now, after finishing shooting all of the targets that are visible, you put your handgun into the cone, and you cannot load your rifle until you see that little mark on the ground that someone scratched out. You want to get into the next bay before being able to transition to the rifle and then shooting those targets. But you're going to see here, I'm pretty happy with the transition speed, but I overshoot a little bit and try resting my rifle onto that barricade, you can say, and almost tripped a little bit. So, it's always a balance between speed and stability when you're shooting. Now here is the first person point of view,
Pull forward.
making sure everything's good to go.
We're going to leave it like that till you get over there.
Okay.
Go ahead, load, make ready on your pistol. Okay, have a seat. Hands and feet touching table.
All right. Now to go back to that conversation about making
Yes, sir.
sure that you're really
Ready.
positioning yourself to be as effective as possible, I backed the chair up just a little bit so I could have some more movement to transition to these 2 targets and to make sure that it was a little bit easier for me to get out of the chair when I was done shooting. But again, 2 shots, center mass, throw another extra one there just to be sure. I find that it's easier to just take the extra shot and then move on. Similarly, with that no shoot that was right in front of those 2 targets to the left, I threw an extra shot into the head box just to be sure. Moving around the barricade, another no shoot. And then here we are going to the final shooting position. A little bit shaky, but throwing 1 extra shot just because I was pretty sure I accidentally shot the barrel there.
Pull forward. Muzzle up or down.
But
Down.
finished up the match, or excuse me, finished up the stage, and it was good to go.
Are you ready? Ready.
On to stage 4. This might have actually been my favorite stage, or let's say it's my second favorite stage of the day. 2 to the body, 1 to the head, so we're doing failure drills for each of these targets. And you can see I shot 2 close in, and then that far one, it was a mandatory, I would say about 50-yard shot. And I'm moving as quickly as I can while engaging targets to the left. Transition into the pistol, again, failure drill, and then the final high-value target had 5 shots to the body, 1 to the head. I think that the first-person point of view for this stage in particular is kind of interesting, just because, one of the things I've been trying to work on more recently is the throttle of my speed that I'm moving at. Like I said earlier, there's always a balance between
Ready.
movement speed and stability for shooting. And when I started shooting USPSA or IDPA, specifically at this area with carbine matches, being able to save the time by moving consistently while shooting, it's a huge advantage. And it was something that you can't really practice on the flat range. And, you can practice it in dry fire to a degree, but there's no real comparison, honestly, to getting that recoil impulse, in my opinion. But the more you practice, the more you train, the more you compete, the better you get at it. And finishing up the stage. So I mentioned that I really enjoyed stage 4 and all the movement, but stage 5 was definitely my favorite. And as you can see, I kicked the stage off by shooting a musket for the first time. And from this visual, you can't really see the targets downrange, but all the targets were dressed as redcoats. Now, this match was actually celebrating the 250th anniversary of the U.S., and it was a little bit after the 4th of July, mid-July, but man, it was a hell of a time. It was a lot of fun. Now, occasionally I will practice different shooting positions, but I rarely practice the kneeling position because, again, there's only so much stuff you can practice on the flat range, in particular at my home range. Now, we run down and we start this Texas Star moving, and this was also the first time I've ever shot a steel target like this moving around, and just I had so much fun with this one in particular, and I shot it better than what I was expecting. But I think if you have those marksmanship fundamentals and you are familiar with shooting quickly, then you can, it transfers over. It's not like you have to have experience with everything come match day, but of course it definitely helps. Now, one thing that's funny about that musket that I shot, you see the stuff online, or at least I've seen the stuff online where people are shooting black powder and there's that little delay between the trigger pull and the hammer going down, and it was way more noticeable than what I was expecting. It felt like 1/10 of a second, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but if you're used to shooting an AR or a handgun, and every time you pull that trigger, you get that recoil impulse almost immediately or instantaneously, and you kind of wait, and then you see this big plume of smoke explode out. It's just different, and man, I should buy a black powder rifle sometime. Sprinting into the shooting position for the Texas Star, pulling the ripcord, loading the Glock, and then I think this is also a pretty good, you can see the red dot quite a bit as I'm taking out these targets. Now, I was told afterwards that I think the guy said to shoot from the bottom just to help prevent movement. I'll have to look into it a little bit, but I had such a hell of a time on this particular stage. It was a lot of fun. Thank you. Woo!
Shooter indicates ready. Stand by.
And this was probably my least favorite stage of the day. And one, I was the first shooter on deck for this one, so I didn't get to watch anybody else take a crack at it first, which made it a little bit more difficult, but everyone rotates through the squad, right? But you'll see here that I come very close to breaking the 180-degree rule with my muzzle as I'm about to transition over, and I should have been paying more attention to it, and probably should have taken the rifle from my right shoulder into my left and made more of a deliberate attempt to keep that rifle away from the 180 degrees, but I maintain a safe direction at all times by keeping it pointed low, and I was right on the threshold there, and mea culpa, I really need to make sure that as I'm practicing my movement, I'm a lot more aware of that. But, safety is always the number one priority. Of course, you want to have a good time when you shoot, but you have to always be aware of your muzzle, keep your finger off the trigger, etc., and make sure that you're being safe at all times.
Shooter indicates ready. Stand
Now for the
by.
first person point of view. Transitioning around this area. After I shot this stage, I started to carry around the, not the shot timer, but the score iPad that we were using. And man, for the guys using the muzzle brakes, it was just so freaking loud. I had to step out of that little trench area. I was wearing foamies the entire day in order to wear my aim cam glasses that you're looking at right now. But yeah, sometimes you just you have to stand back a little bit, especially when it's an enclosed space and you've got someone shooting a 5.56 AR with a muzzle brake. Taking 3 targets here with the rifle. And then before transitioning to this last shooting position, mandatory transition into the pistol. And I make an error here. I reshoot these targets after taking it with the rifle. I think I probably would have avoided that if I went second or third in the rotation, but hey, that's why going first is typically a disadvantage, and watching other people in the squad shoot is a huge advantage.
Shooter indicates ready. Stand
Moving on to
by.
stage 7. We're starting off in urban prone, or at least that's what I was told this shooting position is called. Again, another first for me. I've never practiced this shooting position, but going last in the stack, super helpful. Being able to see how other people are approaching the stage. What you can't see here is I burnt the absolute shit out of my forearm on some hot brass. The brass ejected right onto the ground, and yeah, like, it's a part of shooting. You deal with it, whatever. But it definitely gave me an appreciation for different shooting positions and needing to practice them, more than just occasionally. All right, from that position, transitioning into the handgun. And what you can't really see here is I think there's either 5 or 6 pieces of steel that you have to knock down. And again, no shoot targets backed up behind. So you want to take it a little bit slower, make sure that you get all of your hits. And slow is smooth and smooth is fast. That's usually how I approach that kind of stuff.
All right, ready.
Now, this is where having the first-person point of view is pretty cool. Something I didn't consider, I was aiming high because of the height over bore, but because of the cant of the rifle, I guess I realized this afterwards, the height over bore had shifted. So just something to pay attention to, like, unless you're shooting in this really awkward position, you don't realize, but after looking at the targets, I'm like, oh, wait, I was shooting to the right, shooting to the left of my point of aim. So again, like, you get better as you experience those different things. Taking it slower, taking headshots because of the no shoot. Again, taking a little bit slower, putting an extra shot in there, just making sure I'm getting my A-zone hits. Transitioning to the pistol, and this is where you can see the steel a little bit better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that is the stage. All right, on to the final stage of the day. This was around 5:30 in the evening, and boy, I was pretty freaking tired by this point. We had just gone through a big thunderstorm, and for the majority of the day, like I said before, it was over 100 degrees. It was crazy hot. Now, you might be able to see here, after hitting the starter on that swinger target, the cord got wrapped around my barrel. And, thankfully the RSO was able to give me a quick shout and said, hey, watch out. Otherwise, I would have dragged that with me who knows where. So after moving past that barricade, transition to the pistol, and then 2 targets to knock down. Very close. 2 shots, center mass for these first 5 targets. All right, kick it, and then boom. You can probably see that cord getting wrapped up there ever so quickly. Have to stop, reset, and then move to the next shooting position. 2 more center mass for these targets. Pistol transition incoming. And then, this is basically point blank. Bam, bam. And then I throw an extra shot here because I saw a little break on the left, and I thought to myself, man, let me just throw an extra one in case that was me. It was so quick, I'd rather just be sure. Hey, so if you can't tell, it's a day after my first introduction video. I've got a little bit of bruising on my face from jiu-jitsu, so I suffered through a Kanto choke. If you know, you know. Anyhow, I wanted to share some lessons learned and kind of talk about increasing shooting performance, maybe in a shorter time frame than most people are used to experiencing. I feel like I've made the most gains in my shooting over the last year, and I just wanted to give a brief overview of some things that I picked up from this past match, maybe talk about some lessons learned, gear decisions. It's not going to be a whole gear video, but I wanted to also tie in a little bit of philosophical stuff, which may relate to, my channel introduction, right? Number 1, bring as much water as possible. Whatever you think you need for your water for the day, just double it. I think that I drank well over a gallon of water, and granted, it was from 8 a.m. to 5:30 in the evening. It was incredibly hot, and, I prepared, right? I made sure that I had electrolytes, and now time to do a little bit of show and tell, but I had a 3-liter bag with me in my backpack, and I thought that would be enough. But if the match hosts had not brought out extra water bottles for people to drink, I probably would have gone down with heat exhaustion like the 24 other people out of 47 that also went down with heat exhaustion, right? So always bring more water than you think you need. Usually the rule that I also abide by is bring double the ammo of whatever the match coordinator says. If they say 100 pistol rounds, bring 200 pistol rounds. it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, right? Now, there are different divisions for this specific club. Usually, I shoot in the prepper division, which means you have to keep all of your water, ammunition, gear, weapons on your person at all times, and it can't go out of arm's reach or it's out of play. But in this particular case, I did the open division, and I'll touch on this a little bit later, but it was one of those days where the people who were dropping out were typically wearing their plate carriers. It was extremely hot. They didn't drink enough water. So always bring more water than you think you need. It's one of those lessons from, GWAT, basically, and just hiking and outdoorsmanship in general. Now, number 2, I think I can make the biggest gains for my shooting right now by focusing on movement. I think I've got good marksmanship fundamentals, and I'll touch into training a little bit in a second here, but one of the things that I noticed, the person who placed first at this particular shooting match, whenever he was moving from target to target, he always had his rifle up. He always had his pistol up. And I feel like that's something that I can do to greatly improve my own shooting. And my buddy mentioned, he was like, hey man, like, you're wasting seconds when you're going from high ready, or just having the weapon up, to low ready and transitioning. All that extra movement, all that wasted time, it's burning time up on the clock. So that's something that I'm definitely going to be focusing on, especially in dry fire. Just keeping the weapon up, making sure that I'm aware of that. And it also ties into, I think it was stage 6, general muzzle awareness, always being safe. There have been a couple times where I'm coming close to the 180-degree rule. If you look at some of my YouTube shorts, you'll see that. And it's something that I really just need to hammer home quite a bit more. Because, even if you're at like 160 degrees, it's cutting it close. It's too close. And, being safe, but then also the importance of appearing to be safe as well, in order to not get DQ'd. So just something else to focus on, keeping the weapon up, making sure it's always in a safe direction as well. Now, this kind of ties into some of the things I experienced. I've never shot in a vehicle before this particular match. You can't really prepare for that. I'm not about to go out to my apartment complex with my rifle and, hide in my trunk. I think that would set off some alarms in the neighborhood. That'd be bad. But I could practice shooting urban prone underneath a bed. I could practice, having my rifle on a barricade or a bed when I'm doing dry fire. So, the last time you want to experience something new is when it's in a match. Now, obviously match directors are going to do their best to throw curveballs at people, but those are some things I'm going to be paying attention to in the future. Different shooting positions, especially with the rifle, making sure that you're, slicing the pie, putting the weapon up on, barricades and that kind of stuff. Just getting more reps in, feeling more comfortable. I'd also say that this goes for my buddy. His battery died on his red dot for his handgun, and then his backup iron sights came loose, and he really suffered with his score because of that. When he was shooting the Texas Star, I don't think he really had any sighting. He was just going off index, and God bless you, bro. Like that would be the last time I want my red dot to go down. Besides like a defensive encounter, which obviously you never want to have happen, but I would rather have those kinds of issues with my gear in competition when I'm pushing it to the limit than to be in a situation where there's a bump in the night and, you need your weapon to function perfectly. So, always check your gear beforehand. Make sure that, again, some people will say you don't need to clean your rifle. That's some BS. Like, clean your stuff, guys. Like, I don't know why. Like, if people are reviewing it and they're doing like absurd round counts, it's like, oh, my firearm failed at 10,000 rounds. Okay, but for the average Joe, just clean your stuff. I don't understand why this is a badge of honor. Just clean your stuff. Maintain it properly. Maybe that's the military side of me coming out, but it's like why would you want your bolt to not, go home? Like, why do you want to use the forward assist? I don't know. But a little bit of a rant there, but check your batteries at least once a year. I've heard some people say, hey, every time your birthday rolls around, switch your batteries out. I think that that's a good way of doing business. But, I personally don't have backup iron sights on my competition Glock or on my rifle, but that's because I know when my batteries are changed, and I also do keep spare batteries and tools to access the battery compartment. So one other thing to keep in mind. Now, someone was mentioning that you can waste time transitioning from the pistol to the rifle and vice versa by putting your arm through the sling as well. Instead of just throwing the sling over the neck. I didn't practice that. I just figured, you know what, this is already such a new experience for me, transitioning from the rifle to the pistol and vice versa. I don't want to throw an extra variable into, my style of shooting because I had been practicing transitions at home before the match. But that's something I'm going to keep in mind. I might try just throwing the sling over my neck just to save an extra half second, because after reviewing the footage, I did notice it just took me that extra little bit of time. And, if you're only carrying the rifle around your neck for, less than a minute for a stage, I mean, whatever, just go for that. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit and see how that goes. Now, this is more specific to the gear, but I bought a little Amazon folding cart so that I could lug my stuff around. So again, I wasn't shooting prepper. I didn't have to have my stuff on my body at all times, and I feel like that really helped me prevent heat exhaustion. But I might have to upgrade to my daughter's running stroller. I saw a lot of the older folks using the running strollers that they buy at a five and dime or like a Goodwill, for example, and it looked so much easier to tote the stuff around, so I might have to convince my wife to let me use that for the next shooting competition. We'll see. I don't know if she'll be amenable to that, but whatever. I think I should probably also buy a magnifier. So, again, not a full-length gear video, but this is my competition rifle, right? LWRC, 16-inch upper. I've got a little mini Surefire scout light on here, just a push button, and then I also have a Holosun ARO EVO. I think I'm saying that correctly. Also have a magwell from HRF Concepts. This thing, good stuff. It's awesome. Love it. But basically, this is a stock rifle for the most part. Now, LWRC, they do special things to their rifles. It's not a mil-spec trigger. It's a little bit better than your average mil-spec trigger. Lighter, cleaner break, that kind of stuff. But I love this thing. Runs great. But at the distances that we were shooting, even past 50 meters, 50 yards, whatever, that's when I was starting to wish that I had a little bit more magnification. Now, I have this set up the way that it is because I knew we weren't going to take shots past 100 yards. And I was like, I would rather bias my rifle towards the majority of the shooting that I'm going to be doing. So if I know most of the stuff is going to be from point blank out to 25 yards, all right, I'm going red dot only. That works for me. But yeah, I really am happy with how this has performed over the last few matches. So first 2-gun event, right? But I've shot 3 carbine matches with this, and it has operated great. I'm also going to take some time to complain about muzzle brakes. I understand some people are searching for that extra 5 or 10% gain for, their shooting splits and speed and but man, I'm just rocking an A2 bird cage, and I'm glad that I had my bird cage because when I was getting into those different shooting positions and prone, I felt like it kept a lot more blast away from me than the guys who were rocking the muzzle brakes. You could see the dirt, the grime, the rocks getting blasted in their face, and besides that, it is so super loud, and you've got a fireball, so, I mean, depending on the length of the barrel for the rifle, whatever, it can make a little bit more concussion, it can make a little bit more muzzle flash. I would consider having a suppressor. I think that is a great option, not only for how loud the rifle is, but minimizing those factors I just talked about. But man, I'm pretty bearish on muzzle brakes, especially after this past match. I'm I don't want to be around them. They're too loud. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm being a pansy, but that's my 2 cents on the matter. Now, before I end the video, I also wanted to go over some, general philosophical stuff and, how I've been able to improve as a shooter over the last year. I would say that, in general shooting performance over the last, let's say 2 months, I've really started to come into my own. I've won 2 local pistol matches. Not that it's the craziest achievement ever. It was 9 or 10 shooters a pop. So let's say 15 to 20 different people between the 2 different matches. And, I placed second out of this match out of 47 people. And granted, a lot of people dropped out from heat, but, I felt like I beat the people that I had competed against at previous carbine matches. And, I started to kind of talk with my buddy about this and like how we're improving as shooters. And, I think that the number one way to improve is, one, it always helps to have like a structured framework of training. For me right now, I'm dry firing 5 times a week. I'm trying to hit the range at least, once every 2 weeks, if not compete every 2 weeks. And the more you compete, the better you're going to get at it. Competition is a skill. So if you are thinking about doing your first competition, just go for it, man. Like, if you can safely operate your firearm and hold an A-zone target at 10 yards, I think that you're ready. Practice your reloads, practice your drawing, but everything else will come into it. And I think that the longer you wait to make that jump to competition, just in terms of like shooting performance, I think that you're going to hold yourself back. And the best way to make progress is to get uncomfortable. And again, always be safe, find the right club, find the right group of shooters, maybe find that mentor who can help you learn how to shoot a little bit faster, a little bit more proficiently. But, as soon as you can, I would say just make that jump. I've had an excellent time meeting people at matches, not just locally, but, I've shot 2 USPSA matches across state lines, and, I do these carbine competitions and 2-gun competitions now with my buddy, and it's just, it has helped me improve much faster than if I'm just going to the flat range, punching paper at 10 yards and calling it quits, and thinking that, I'd be able to go and perform as best as I can. But I would say, you need a consistent foundation of marksmanship, right? That's why I said, hold the A zone at 10. Not that that's a crazy challenge for most people, but past that point, getting more specific with your training, something that's also really helped me. Shout out to Ben Stager. I've been working through the Practical Shooting Training book. Bought this from his pro shop. It's awesome, man. It's really been super helpful. You can probably see the USPSA silhouettes behind me. Just consistently training, and then also using a shot timer. And one of the things I've been doing recently is when I go to the range, I have a set plan. I've got a set round count. I know I've got 150 rounds of 9mm. I have to make it happen with limited resources. And so I do. And when I'm doing my Bill drills or my Blake drills or, 4 aces or anything like that, there's always a diagnostic process. Like, what can I do to improve my shooting fundamentals? What can I do to improve my splits? What can I do to improve anything, really? And that which does not get measured does not get improved. So make sure that and it's going to look kind of nerdy, right? But I have my little notebook. I've got my shot timer. I'm blasting Bill drills and, recording all that information and keeping it in a spreadsheet. And now, because it's been a month, 2 months, I can see my progress go from 2.2 seconds from the low ready at 3 yards to 2.15 seconds to 2.1 seconds, and then starting to crack under 2 seconds at the low ready. Not from a draw, okay? But, just be consistent with the dry fire training. Make sure that you have a set plan going into the range. Have structured training. Use a shot timer. It is easily the most effective way to improve your shooting, in my opinion. And yeah, compete as often as possible. Make that jump if you can. Like, if you're comfortable, go for it. Find that local group of people. And, I wanted to leave you guys with one last thought. The balance between LARPing, so your live action role play, dressing up, doing all the stuff, and real world training. So, I've mentioned this before, military veteran. I've been in situations where I really wish I had a firearm, situations where I thought that there was an active shooter, and I seriously feared for my life. I thought it might have been my day, right? And, that's one of the reasons why I train. I've been in those situations, not just once, but twice, and I thought, man, I wish I was better prepared. Man, I wish I was armed. And there's a balance between, the LARP and the fantasy and having fun, and that's great. Like, when I'm doing prepper class, like, I think that there's a benefit of training with your gear, your chest rigs, your plate carriers, making sure that everything functions well. And then, there's also a little bit of gamesmanship. If you want to game and, cheese out your build and, make sure that, for example, you might have 10 rounds in your starting magazine for a Carbine Classic, and then you reload right off the bat so that you have your 40 rounds of 9mm into your PCC. I understand the gamesmanship, right? Like I personally, I don't do that. I think it's a little bit cheesy, but there's always like striking a balance between the two. And this past match, I shot 3 carbine matches doing the prepper class, had a great time. And I said, you know what, like it's going to be a long day. There's going to be more stages, a little bit more difficult shots. Let's just go open and let's see what happens. And, I was able to perform better than I expected because I've been consistently training. And, if you are there to solely do the LARP, practice with your gear, that's awesome, man. You do you. And if you're there to game, again, you do you. Find your niche that you like. But again, go out, train. If you're not as comfortable with firearms, find a good quality instructor, find that friend who has experience, military, law enforcement, or someone who's just, a hobbyist that loves to do it, and go out there and make it happen. But don't be afraid to take that first step. I wish that I had started competing earlier, and now I'm trying to play the catch-up game. But anyway, those are just some parting thoughts, a little bit of a breakdown of the match that I did this past weekend. And I just wanted to say thank you. If you've been watching through the whole video, if you could please like the video, subscribe, do whatever, I'd really appreciate it. But this has been Reed with Blue Hen Combatives, and I will see you on the next one. So thank you.